What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Let's just watch Mariko Tamaki try again this week in Crush and Lobo number 4. Alright, so if you remember, the whole thing that happened was Crush broke up with her girlfriend, apparently again, and then now she's been tricked into prison by her dad, who has now escaped. And that's actually where we're starting out, where we're seeing Lobo after he has now escaped, and Crush is kind of filling us in on basically, like I just said, what happened. So we get all of that, and then she's kind of talking to us about pretty much life here in prison and saying it's pretty routine, which, yeah, it's prison, so it's pretty routine. And then there's this, like, other inmate who comes up, wants to have a problem with her, and we come to find out from Crush that this prisoner apparently has a problem with Lobo because of the whole thing having to do with space dolphins. If you remember, Lobo's into space dolphins. So, I mean, she doesn't really give us anything else to go off of there just yet. It has something to do with space dolphins. It's complicated. And then we go over to the we go over to this where apparently she's like working out like this. And I mean, this is the only time we see her drawn, looking like this kind of a linebacker, is just like in this one particular page where she's kind of like doing the weights and then also stooped over, because apparently this was supposed to be funny, saying like, oh yeah, on what I call Wednesday, because time doesn't really have any meaning here. She says, then I do arms and core day, then I do some work in acrylics, and then she goes in. This is one thing, you can't really see the picture here. You'll see it on the next page. She says she's doing some work in acrylics, but it looks like it's just drawn with markers and crayon. I don't know if this was actually drawn by a child, but that's what it looks like. So that's what I hope it was. Anyway, she gets attacked by this other inmate who actually is a dolphin. And the thing is, this is what's weird. I already had a problem with it when I saw the dolphin come in and it's blowing water out of its blowhole. I was like, that's where they release, like, air. Like, yes, you see water come out, but that's because they're covered in it. And when they breach, like, that's, whatever. So I was like, there's no reason for water to be coming out of it. And then she even says, how are you even here? Don't you need, like, water? No, dolphins breathe like air. So, I mean, I guess if you want to like argue it, like, don't you have to be wet since you're like a fish creature? Still, they're mammals. What I mean, like, don't you still have to be in water? Well, apparently not. I mean, this one has legs, so it's not like it has to swim around. Anyway, so she's saying or thinking to herself about how, could I have guessed it would feature a ballpoint obsessed dolphin who, like everyone else in this faculty or facility, can't tell that I'm not Lobo. And see, that's what y'all should have just called this. Instead of that whole I am not Starfire bullshit, you should have just called this I'm not Lobo. Because even though you drew this like Lobo, and I still don't understand why Lobo hasn't just outright killed her. He's killed every other Zarnian every opportunity he gets. Anyway, she goes on fighting with the dolphin, and then they come in and like subdue her or whatever. So this is where I'm saying we see a bigger close up on the picture itself. And like I said, it just looks like it's drawn with crayons, markers, not acrylic paint, even though she was apparently painting it. So then her roommate comes up and is trying to tell her, like, hey, I was wondering if you're up for a snack, because if you remember, this is the mantis that likes eating people's heads. So she said, not today, and then she, like, punches him in the face and says, again, not today. So then we see that there's this other thing where she has a flashback again to the ex. And by this point, I'm like, why are we even still seeing these flashbacks? Like, I don't care about her girlfriend. And this whole thing, the relationship dynamic, like, you've given me no reason to care about it. Is it really just that we're supposed to be like, aw, lesbian couple, aw? I guess that's really what they were hoping for, but you're not going to get that from this queer. Anyway, so we have this whole little thing, and then we come back to the present, where Crush goes into like one of the therapy sessions that Lobo was in before. So they're talking about feelings and everything, and then they start talking to another one of the other inmates or whatever. But this is where Crush finally puts it together that, oh, the stuff that Lobo was saying to me that he used to convince me was stuff that he heard in therapy. Yeah, dumbass. That's exactly what he was doing. So, of course, this pisses her off because she finally puts two and two together and says all that freaking heart to heart talk. It was just stuff he got from group therapy, and I fucking fell for it. So, all of a sudden, she freaks out and attacks the therapist robot droid or whatever, and then we get this thing where she goes up and punches it, and it says crush, but that's not a crushing move. You know what I mean? Crush would have been like if you had crushed it, which would have looked cool. You could have drawn that in there too, but instead we get this, which would have really been more of like a smash. Well, not even really a smash, more like a bash. I guess you could use smash or even crash, but crush it is not. Anyway, so she goes on saying, it's all garbage. Garbage he used to trick me. Ironically, after fighting any number of inmates in this place, punching a robot therapist is what lands me in solitary. So she says, where I can finally think. And then she says, so this was the plan. So though this was his plan. Get me to prison. Misdirect me with therapy jargon just long enough to plant this bio thing on me. What's worse, the flagrant misuse of group therapy or the fact that I bought it. Probably the second one. You can't trust a Zarnian. Or you can't really just trust someone who's going through the system, who likes to use systems. Anyway, so we get another little like flashback where she's thinking about Katie, and then she says, "Okay, so what now? I'm not staying here. I need a plan." So they finally come and get her out of like solitary and everything. So she comes up apparently with this plan, which is to go up to like the biggest dude, start a fight with him, which is normally what you would do in prison if you were trying to assert dominance or whatever, or just get people to leave you alone. But in this case, she actually has a different plan with it. So she starts the fight, and then we have to get this whole page spread, which I mean, this would be a pretty cool, like, fight scene or whatever, if we didn't have all of this stupid-ass monologuing inside where it says, I mean, do I have daddy issues? Probably. Is that a pretty sexist way to describe it? Yes. Anyway, for clarity, I just want you to know, this isn't that. Well, thanks for clearing that up. This is a plan I could never have guessed in a million years. I am so very happy that you spelled all of that out for me and gave me nothing to have to think about at all, because you told me. You showed me, you told me, you explained it for me. Thank you so much for ruining your own character. So then she ends up in their like sick bay or whatever where they're taking care of her, and then she's kind of thinking to herself, telling us that basically she doesn't need the bandages that are on her because she's a Zarnian, which means of course she can regenerate from whatever. So she's already pretty much healed, and she just apparently likes to wear bandages sometimes just for fun. So yeah, she says, I do wear band-aids, but only for the look sometimes. And then she turns to like the monster that she started a fight with and is like, hey, thanks for your help or whatever, and sorry about your tooth, because she like knocked out his tooth. So in angry monster speech, apparently he's like, what? And then she decides, yeah, here's where they're finally going to figure it out. And apparently this is what it took for them to finally figure out that this is not Lobo, despite the fact that they should already have medical scans of him and pictures. Somehow it's not until they finally do this part where I guess they finally took a blood sample or something, and that's where they realize, oh, you're not Lobo. So she finally goes and talks to like the warden or whatever, and is basically trying to negotiate her, I guess not really release, but for them to kind of like let her go and find Lobo, and she'll bring him back to how we, not only prove like for sure, yes, this is who you actually want or whatever, but just, because she wants revenge. Anyway, she says, what? I'm not Lobo. Lobo is loose. That doesn't bother you? And of course, the warden's like, according to our data, Lobo's sensor is within the facility. She says, except who you actually have in prison is a teen titan. Of course, she says, I quit. She doesn't know that. She says, and Titans don't tend to take kindly to their members being falsely imprisoned. To which the warden says, we shall have to look into that. She's like, look, I don't know what liability you have for letting Lobo get loose, but you do also have at your disposal the only person uniquely motivated to catch him and bring him back. So how about it? And this is where we're also getting the intercut with Lobo where he's saying, do we have a deal? So we don't exactly know who he's talking to. But anyway, she's saying, I know my father. Okay, and this is who he was talking to. He's like, or do I have to turn this place into powder? Because he was buying all of these like weapons. And then he still ends up blowing the place up anyway. So, I mean, that is actually classic Lobo. But I mean, unfortunately, we only get it for a page. And then we're right back over to Crush. So she's saying, back into prison. Because she's saying, he's an unrepentant scourge. And I should get a chance to get him back. Back into prison. Get him back into prison. Thank you. Anyway, so the warden is saying you have 50 Earth hours, after which this cuff will send such a significant electroshock through your system that it will cause you to explode into many small pieces, and even your Zarnian body will not be able to recover. Well, that's not how it works. We've seen Lobo blown up before. Like, we've seen explosions and shit, and he still regenerates. Like, that's not going to stop a Zarnian, but apparently they're under this impression that just blowing it up is going to be enough. All right. So she says, "Do you understand me? It will blow you up in 50 hours if you don't return." So Crush is like, "Yeah, I got it." So she takes off. She says she doesn't wish me the best of luck because this is a win-win for her. Whatever, doesn't matter. I've now got slightly less than 50 hours to find Lobo and punch him so hard in the nose his whole face explodes. Or something. I'm going to get Lobo, okay? That's what's happening. What, were you expecting some sort of pithy last line here? What are you, new? Yeah, I guess you're right. We shouldn't expect any competent writing or intriguing dialogue at all. So you're right. What am I, new? Why would I expect this to be a good book? You haven't made it a good book for the last 3 issues before this one. So I don't know. I'm not even going to ask if anybody out there is bothering to keep up with this because I know pretty much probably no one is, but I know that a lot of people do watch these videos just out of morbid curiosity, like, what's actually going on with that book that has Lobo in it? Nothing good, I can assure you. It's nothing good. But anyway, yeah, they're just kind of trying to, keep steamrolling this along until they can finally put out the, like, trade collected edition or whatever. Not that anyone will buy that either, but at least they will have the whole, like, book together, probably just in time for Pride season. Let's see. We're on 4, so we have 4 more issues, so we'll probably go for another 4 months, and then they'll draw it out for another 3 months. Yeah, that puts us right around June next year, so yeah, they'll probably put it out, the collected edition for Pride. That's probably what'll happen, since they've been, like, pushing the whole, like, Crush thing in every Pride celebration this past year. I don't know. I don't know what else I could possibly say about it. It's a terrible book. It really is. And that's why I was saying, where we're just going to see Mariko Tamaki try this time around because there was nothing else to expect from this. But yeah, that's going to do it for me on this review. So like I said, if you did read it, do feel free to let me know what you thought. If you just have any general thoughts or comments, yeah, go ahead and share them with me because I really don't expect anybody to be reading this. I really don't. But yeah, feel free to share your comments with me down below in the appropriate section. And if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like it. Make sure you're subscribed. Share this video if you would like. And if you are done here, then go and read a book, but avoid that one like the plague. And if not, then I'll see you on my next video.